Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of The Completionist. The PlayStation 3 is one of my favorite consoles. I love all the indie games on it, I love all the AAA stuff on it, and everything in between, but there's one franchise, so I guess now it's a franchise, as is the PlayStation experience, that I missed out on was The Last of Us, and I thought, you know what? It got remastered on PS4, what better time to take a look at The Last of Us? After what seemed like ages, but was actually only about 3.5 years, the good people at Naughty Dog finally dropped the hype bomb that we were all waiting for. The Last of Us Part 2 was real, and it was coming. Eventually. And I have to confess, I've never even played The Last of Us. I know. I'm gross. And yet, I know that the game's name has become synonymous with excellence in video games. Just like the WarioWare games have become synonymous with what the hell was that in video games. It eventually went on to win over 240 Game of the Year awards, but when it started out, The Last of Us was the pet project of just one half of Naughty Dog's full studio. While one team was busy ushering Nathan Drake through his third adventure, the other team began working on a humble tale of a tough little girl, her grumpy old babysitter, and the post-apocalyptic wasteland that they call home. On paper, The Last of Us sounds like yet another zombie game that's made all the worse by an ever-present escort mechanic. Well, stop looking at that paper! Crumple it up and throw it away, goddammit! Because after giving the game a chance, you'll quickly discover the genuine care and effort from everyone involved with making it. From the developers, to the composers, to the designers. This game is the result of some top-notch talent. Even the voice actors are the cream of the crop, including the ubiquitous Troy Baker as Joel and the wonderful, angelic Ashley Johnson as Ellie. Most people know her as little Chrissy Seaver from Growing Pains, but she's accomplished so much more in her career. She had a cameo in the Avengers movie, she's currently on a crime drama called Blind Spot, and she voiced Gretchen Grundler on freaking Recess! Recess! She plays a bunch of musical instruments, she graduated from high school. Gerard! Okay, look. Everybody has their celebrity crush. Some people are into Ryan Gosling. I appreciate the grace and beauty of Ashley Johnson. I grew up watching Growing Pains, and I guess I just grew up alongside her. What were we talking about? Oh, right, The Last of Us. Everybody loved it, sold a bunch, let's do this. Fortunately, my first encounter with the game will be The Last of Us Remastered for the PS4, which somehow manages to make the game's many impressively bleak ruins and wastelands look even more depressing. That's the power of the PS4. Depression. After taking a long and hard look at the game's trophy list, it's apparent that completing it will be long and hard. There are trophies that require beating the campaign multiple times, ones for collecting tons of items and conversations, DLC trophies, and dear God, multiplayer achievements! Why won't you stay dead, spawn of Satan, you sick son of a bitch? Here's the plan. I'm going to start off by playing through the game on normal mode to familiarize myself with the game and its mechanics. Once that's done, I'm going to go back through on the hardest mode, making sure to grab every single collectible. Then, I'm going to have to complete New Game Plus a few more times in order to nab the related trophies. And then, I'll begin throwing myself against the wall that is Factions, The Last of Us multiplayer mode. Alright, look, I'm a little worried. Even outside of the savage mosh pit that awaits for me in multiplayer, survival games like this one can be pretty brutal in their later difficulties. I think the only way I'll be able to finish the online modes is by genuinely getting good, and the only way to triumph in the campaigns is by painstakingly memorizing enemy patterns and being very, very patient. It'll be tough, but at least I'm not alone. As long as we've got each other, we've got the world spinning right in our hands, baby, you and me. We've gotta be the luckiest dreamers who never quit dreaming. We've got this, baby, let's go. Just like a lot of other modern video games, The Last of Us borrows heavily from cinema, but The Last of Us sets itself apart by using these cinematic approaches more skillfully and tactfully than any other game I've ever played. The game takes place 20 years after a fungal outbreak that has decimated human society. There are crazed, infected humans everywhere, and once populated cities have become dangerous no man's lands. Here's a sobering piece of trivia for ya. The zombie fungus in The Last of Us is based on a real-life parasitic fungus known as Cordyceps that actually turns organisms into mindless zombies. It mainly only infects insects, sure, but tell that to my skin, which has long since then crawled off my body and up the wall, never to come back down. Our main characters are Joel, a middle-aged, morally ambiguous smuggler, and Ellie, a teen girl who was bitten by one of the infected, but instead of becoming a mushroom monster, miraculously shows no symptoms at all. In order to keep his promise to a friend, Joel vows to ferry Ellie across the country and deliver her into the custody of the Fireflies, a militia group that's researching a cure for the Cordyceps infection. But getting there's not gonna be easy when Ellie's streetwise sass rubs up against Joel's personal brand of grump. Not to mention the scavengers, monsters, and natural hazards that are waiting for them along the way. It's kind of like Pixar's Up, but instead of talking dogs, there are horrors with mushrooms bursting out of their faces. Other than that, it's pretty much the same thing. The premise is nothing new. We've seen versions of this tale all over pop culture, but stories don't have to be new to be good. They just have to be good. And that's exactly what The Last of Us delivers. A good story. But there's an important distinction to be made here. When compared to stories in general, across film, literature, etc., The Last of Us is merely adequate. If you translated it to a film, you'd watch it once on Stars and then promptly forget about it. But when compared to the stories in other games, The Last of Us stands out as something special. First off, the main characters actually have depth, and they actually develop over the course of the game. And their personalities aren't just explored via non-interactive cutscenes. They'll occasionally pipe up with semi-random bits of dialogue, building their individuality while keeping the controller in the player's hands. And even when it's not obvious, The Last of Us is constantly telling you its story in very subtle ways. From the dimly lit corridors of an abandoned building to the wild vegetation entangling a forgotten suburb, every area in the game silently conveys its personal history to those who are observant enough to notice. Oh, and they're all gorgeous. Seriously, this game is prettier than a honey-baked ham. The beautifully composed score is nothing like the generic orchestral fluff that's become so popular in games lately. The almost lonely sounding guitar that leads the composition mirrors the imperfection of the characters in The Last of Us. And the music knows exactly when to enter and when to leave the scene. Sometimes when you're stalking in the shadows, the best soundtrack is nothing at all. You hear nothing. I am the darkness. Now sleep. Sleep the sleep of the just. Sleep, you son of a bitch. Oh yeah, go down, go down. Shh, shh. Your family's already dead, it's fine. Shh. And when it comes to the voice acting, this cast does incredible work. All the dialogue feels natural, making the characters seem all the more real. I'm willing to bet that the cast considers this game as their finest work. You know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna find out right now.
Hello, SBV, this is Amy.
Hi, this is Chris Redfield with Stars Entertainment.
And how may I direct your call?
Yeah, I'm looking to cast Ashley Johnson for one of our upcoming projects.
And what would you say is the nature of this project exactly?
It's a movie.
Gerard, you have to stop calling. If you continue to do so, I will be forced to get the police involved.
You can't keep us apart, Amy! From its compelling characters to its gorgeous sound and visuals, The Last of Us embraces the best parts of cinematic storytelling and video game-specific methods as well. The Last of Us is like the Daywalker of video games. All of movies' strengths, none of their weaknesses, and only some of Wesley Snipes' tax problems. Dear Mr. Snipes, come back soon. We miss you. Depending on how you play it, The Last of Us can either be a somewhat mindless good time, or an initially demoralizing crusade that somehow ends up as an incredible time. The game asks a lot of its players in regards to completion, but the more obstacles it throws your way, the more you end up appreciating it. No matter how you choose to play, your mission is the same. Get this little girl right here safely across the country. And it's not like you can visit your local Walmart to stock up on Pringles and ammo either. If you need supplies, you're gonna have to scavenge for it, so use your resources wisely. Oh yeah, the bad guys outnumber you 1,000,000 to 1, so you might want to exercise some stealth if you want to avoid getting a hickey from a guy with athlete's face. When you do run into the opposition, you're gonna have a wide array of firearms to choose from, but everybody knows what real survivors use in battle: bricks, bottles, and shivs. Real talk, in addition to being able to stun or take out foes, bricks and bottles can also be thrown to distract them, offering a sneakier approach to certain encounters. And while you can stab a shiv into some poor dude's neck, you can also use them to open doors that hold useful items. But if you want to stab people, I won't judge. I understand. You can stay 30 steps ahead of the competition by using Joel's listen mode, which basically turns him into Daredevil. You can get a bat eye's view of the situation and plan accordingly. It's pretty damn useful. Not all of your supplies will come ready-made. Many of them have to be crafted out of raw materials, aka garbage. And a lot of these recipes share common ingredients, so if you've been firebombing dudes with dozens of Molotov cocktails, then don't look shocked when you ain't got the necessary materials to craft a med kit when you need it. It's a pretty clever system that makes every crafting choice feel very important. That freedom of choice extends to almost all of The Last of Us's encounters. You can go full offense with guns a-blazing, you can take dudes out silently by strangling them one by one, or you can try and sneak past them all together without engaging anyone. Sometimes there are even multiple paths through a section, encouraging exploration and replayability. There aren't that many distinct enemy types in the game, but what The Last of Us lacks in quantity, it makes up for in quality. The few enemies it does have all behave drastically different from one another. There's your runners, common infected who'll run you down like you're a preteen celebrity. Then there's the clickers, blind infected who use echolocation to find you and will completely overpower you if they lay hands on you. Ugh. Night night. And then there are the stalkers, which are kind of a hybrid between the two. And while there aren't any real bosses in the game, the bloaters are the closest thing. They're tough, they've got a projectile, and... yeah, that. And on top of all of those bad guys, you've also got to deal with human foes who can employ smarter, long-range tactics to take you out. Since the game utilizes these various enemies in assorted numbers, placement, and frequency, your encounters with them will always seem fresh and new. I just wish the game offered more instances in which you take on the infected and human bad guys at the same time. This only happens one time, and it's only in the DLC portion of the game. They actually attack each other, weakening each other's forces. There's a good amount of collectibles in the game too. Some impact your gameplay, while others are there more for show. There's parts which you can use to upgrade your weapons, and you can even upgrade Joel's attributes by finding supplement pills. Pills! They make you a better person. You can also find training manuals which passively buff the items you craft. Then there's the items that add a bit of flavor to the world of The Last of Us, like firefly pendants, the dog tags of fallen members of the militia. You can also collect artifacts, which are random files and documents. And then there are the comic books, which you can give to Ellie. I don't care if you're being hunted by people who want to murder you for your meager possessions. You get Ellie some goddamn comics! And then there are the optional conversations. Occasionally, you'll get the opportunity to initiate some chit-chat from another character, usually Ellie, about recent events in the game or your current environment. They're not really collectibles, but they do offer some enjoyable character building moments. The problem is that you need to hear them all if you want to get the trophy that's tied to them, and some of them are extremely finicky. There are guides out there on how to get them all to trigger, but sometimes they just won't even happen, even if you follow all of the criteria required. It's freaking aggravating to have to inch your way forward at a snail's pace because you're trying to get a 14-year-old girl to talk to you. Guys, this is why no one likes teenagers. It's too hard. On most modes, The Last of Us isn't really much of a challenge, and the real shame is that you never really feel much like a scavenger on these easier modes. Even without much exploring, there's always enough materials to craft whatever you need, and you'll come across enough ammo to completely negate the need for any kind of stealth. Plus, Joel's Listen mode makes tracking enemies way too easy. You're basically an infected killing machine. But all that changes when you get to The Last of Us's hardest difficulty, Grounded mode, aka real life mode, aka get f***ed. You've got far fewer supplies, your health is almost non-existent, there's no HUD, you can't use your Matt Murdock powers, the enemy senses are all heightened, the checkpoints are spaced way further apart from each other, and all of your guns are replaced by Ninja Turtle action figures. Okay, that last part's not true, but Grounded mode is still plenty tough. It's absolutely unforgiving, and there were plenty of instances where my playthrough came to a standstill because I'd get dropped by a stray bullet or spotted by a single runner. But with all of that said, it's not until I got to Grounded mode that I really started to appreciate this game. With all the restrictions placed on you, the game starts to feel like an actual survival game, and it's honestly the mode in which I had the most fun. It wasn't until I got all my favorite toys taken away that I started to really appreciate the cool stuff that was right under my nose the entire time. Grounded mode forced me to be creative and resourceful in order to succeed, and even though it kicked my ass royally, I'd still play it again. Thank you, Grounded mode, for showing me what I'm made of. And then there's the multiplayer, which is called Factions, because you pick from one of two factions when you begin, the Fireflies and the Hunters. But one of the things that makes The Last of Us's multiplayer unique is that it's actually its own mini campaign that unfolds over the course of your many online matches. The main goal is to have your clan settlement survive for 12 straight weeks. Don't worry, not real life weeks. I would be very unhappy if that was the case. You see, each match you play counts as a single day, which comes out to 84 games per faction that you have to complete. One of these days, multiplayer trophies, I'm gonna find you, and I will kill you. There are two game modes that are slight variations on classic deathmatch, and a third objective-based mode. The gameplay is surprisingly fun. I thought this would be a tacked-on addition to the main campaign, but since your selection of weapons and items are comparable to the ones in the single-player mode, things feel nice and familiar. Your performance during these matches affects your settlement's chances of survival. In order to keep your people alive, you'll need to gather supplies during your matches. If you fail to do so, your clan members can get sick and will die off. Not a good way to run a community. To get supplies, you can scavenge the corpses of your foes and perform actions mid-match, such as reviving teammates and crafting items. But of course, things aren't quite that simple. At all times, you're at the risk of losing your clan members, and if you lose them all, your weeks-long progress will be wiped, forcing you to start all over again. Every couple of matches, you'll be presented with a challenge that will either add to your clan's population or take away from it. It's up to you to decide what your actual challenge will be, though. You can choose things like executing your enemies in special ways or downing people with specific weapons, but you've only got 3 matches to complete your challenge, and when you're fighting to keep your progress, the matches can become really stressful. There's nothing like the threat of 100% wiping of your settlement to make you play with purpose and curse out your teammates. Look, the trophies that require you to complete 2 12-week campaigns are just too much time and stress. The actual challenges that you have to complete aren't that bad, but the looming threat of failure makes it hard to enjoy to play regularly. The Last of Us offers a lot of different experiences in one package, and the best of these experiences aren't necessarily when you'd expect them to be. Both Grounded mode and multiplayer mode ended up being a pleasant surprise to me. I guess the harder this game dishes it out, the more I like it. I feel like I'm discovering more things about myself right now. Ladies and gents, Gerard likes it rough. Grabbing all the collectibles during the single-player campaign doesn't get you anything directly, but they do get you tags. There are tags for just about every action in the game, from crafting items to building up your settlement in multiplayer. It's a pretty cool system that keeps you interested in playing, and it even gets you some cool stuff. Why would I not put Ellie in Bruce Lee's tracksuit? The Last of Us consumed me for a good while, and I'm glad to be done with it. It's kind of a heavy game, but while I was in it, I was seriously enjoying myself, and I'm glad that I got to see what all the hype was about. Now we just have to wait and find out the sequel's release date. Actually, I'm just gonna... Okay, well, hold on.
Gerard, I know your number at this point. I'm going to block you if you call again.
When's The Last of Us Part 2 coming out?
I don't know.
Why hasn't Ashley returned any of my letters?
She is a very busy woman, Gerard.
Why won't she love me back?
Gerard, I need you to calm down, and I need you to maybe seek some medical attention.
I just want to know.
Okay, I'm going to hang up.
I'm gonna
Have a lovely day, if you can.
Oh, well, worth a shot. During my completion of The Last of Us, there were 51 hours of total playtime, 76 deaths, 4 campaign playthroughs, 50 trophies unlocked, over 160 matches of multiplayer played, and 1 new addition to my list, Amy from SBV. I'll put you on hold when I hold your... I'm gonna get you. The Last of Us absolutely deserves all of the praise it gets. It draws inspiration from the best sources while creating an experience that pushes the boundaries of what games can do. It creates memorable moments that stay with you long after the game is over, and it's always fun to play. It may not have many unlockables, but completing The Last of Us is its own reward. I love survivor horror games. I also love zombie games, and there's kind of a difference between the two. But more importantly, I love the idea that we as humans are just as bad as the monsters themselves. We kind of devolve into these scary beings that the monsters should definitely be afraid of. And The Last of Us not only has that going for it, but it tells an incredibly cohesive story that has a perfect button on it to the point where we don't even need The Last of Us Part 2. But the fact that that's coming means there's got to be more story to tell, and I am very excited to see what's coming up. The Last of Us is incredibly difficult. There are a lot of trophies on here and difficulty spikes that'll keep you playing time and time again, but not because you're frustrated, not because you're bad at the game, but because you want to overcome the difficultness of this game. You love the characters, you love the gameplay, you love the engagement, and you kind of want to complete it for the sake of completing it. Yeah, you don't really get that much in regards to the end of all completing things, but it doesn't matter. The reward is the journey itself, and I cannot stress that enough about The Last of Us. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of complete it.
Complete it!
That's all time we have for today, guys, so please, as always, let us know what you thought about today's episode somewhere on the internet. Question of the day: what was the game franchise that you played not knowing anything about it, and when you were done, it blew you the hell away? Recently for me, it was Final Fantasy 15 in regards to that game just kind of taking precedence of how awesome it is. So let me know in the comments below. Now, if you excuse me, let's just hear a couple of Ellie's really bad jokes. They're like, kind of bad, but they're endearing because of Ashley Johnson.
I heard 2 peanuts walked into a park. One was assaulted.
Ah!
Good one.
That was a good one.
A boiled egg in the morning is really hard to beat.
That's funny.
That is funny.
I like that one.
I'm reading a book on anti-gravity, and it's impossible to put down.
Nice.
Yes, that one's awesome. It's not that the guy didn't know how to juggle. He just didn't have the balls to do it.
Ooh.